fellow game developers, today we're about to dive into the amazing world of blueprint interfaces in Unreal Engine 5. Brace yourselves for a game-changing experience that will make your development process smoother than ever and your FPS higher than ever. Say goodbye to those casting headaches and hello to clean code and seamless communication. Let's get started. Well, let's talk about casting. Casting is like planning a small get-together with your crush at your place, only to find out that her family, her extended family, her relatives, distant relatives, even the family dog have shown up uninvited. So your cozy gathering suddenly turns into a full-blown family reunion, and everyone's eagerly awaiting in your living room, or should I say your PC memory, while you're trying to have some quality time with your crush. Talk about overwhelming. It's like throwing a wide net into the sea of blueprints, catching everything in your path. Yeah, you may catch the variables that you need for your code, however you will drag back also some unnecessary luggage. And these unnecessary luggage, these additional variables that you don't need, may negatively impact performance. But fear not, blueprint interfaces are here to save the day. They offer a streamlined and focused approach. They are like a personal VIP express lane at a theme park. So they act as a precision tool that allows you to accomplish specific tasks and get only the variables and the things that you need. Nothing more, nothing less. Alright, let's see how it's done. Alright, so I opened a fresh new project, the basic first-person Unreal template that comes with the engine itself. It's more or less a blank slate and should be good to go. Now first, let's take a look at how can we create a blueprint interface. So I'm gonna create a folder here and call it Blueprints. Let's go inside and I'm gonna create another folder here and call it Blueprint Interfaces. Okay, let's enter inside here too. Now here, we can right click, go to Blueprints and go to Blueprint Interface. And I'm gonna name this one BPI, that's for Blueprint Interface, Interact. Awesome. Now double click it. So as you can see here, we have the blueprint graph. However, we can't do much. Blueprint interface serves only as a clean connection between other blueprints. And on the right side here, we can create different functions that we like. So I'm gonna create a single function here and call it interaction. There we go. Other things we can do, as you can see here, we can add inputs and outputs. I'm not gonna do that for this tutorial, but we'll touch on briefly. You can use these inputs to transfer data between blueprints, like if you unlive an NPC, you can send its XP data to the player. But if you've added output pins here, it'll appear as a silver in the blueprint actor where you set up the interface. Now, before we go on, let's compile and save, and we'll need to do a couple of things in the project settings. So I'm gonna go to Edit, Project Settings here, and in the Engine section here under Input, don't mind the yellow warning here on the top. It shows up only if you're a UE5.2 user, but the axis and action mappings here will still work. So for this tutorial, I'll create an action mapping here, and I'm gonna call it Interact. I'm gonna click this icon here where it says select the key value, and I'm gonna click it again, and now we have the left mouse button designated for the interact mapping. Good. I'm gonna close this one, and the next thing we're gonna do is go inside the first person character blueprint. So we go to first person blueprints, BP first person character. So double click it. Okay, so now that we're inside, let's dive directly into the event graph here. So there are some, there is some stuff here from the blueprint itself. Like it comes like by default with the first person character blueprint. We're gonna ignore all of these things. Here we'll press right click on the mouse and type input interact. So we basically just chose the mapping we've just added in the project settings. Good. Now, before we continue, we need to make a way how to use the blueprint interface. So firstly, let me create a function here. I'm gonna name this function line trace. Honestly, we can do it with a box collision and overlap this, but this way is more exciting. So let's dive right into line trace. For peeps who do not know what a line trace is, it's in simple terms, it's basically a red line, a laser coming out from a single source like the player camera. It's used for various things like debugging, interaction, shooting, all sorts of stuff. So keep in mind that it's seen only in the editor, only devs can see it, it's not seen by the player. Okay, so now in the inputs here, we'll create an input variable. I'm gonna call this variable length. Good. So this variable will be of variable type float. Float is a numerical variable that can hold a decimal number. By decimal or real numbers, I mean numbers like 5.33 or 3.22, and contrary to float, we have integer here. Integers are numbers without decimal points, and we want to be as precise as possible with the line trace. You'll see why. I can type line trace by channel. Awesome. We set up the base. Firstly, ensure that the trace channel here is set to visibility and set the draw debug type for duration. This is just so we can see in the editor whether the line trace works. But next we'll need to tell Mr. Unreal where does our line trace start and where does it end. Now drag out of the start node here and type get world location. We need to get the world location of our player camera. That's the first person camera component here. Here, as you can see, we also have it like first person camera. We're gonna click this one here, and as you can see here, we have first person camera, and we are getting the world location of the first person camera. Good, so we set up the start location of the line trace. Now we'll need to set up the end. Now this part is a bit more complicated, guys, so bear with me. So now that we have the first person camera, drag again from the player camera here, and we'll need to get the forward vector. So forward vector is basically where the camera is looking at. Now from the forward vector, we'll need to multiply it first. But what do we multiply the forward vector with? So I'm gonna type multiply. Well, we'll multiply it with the length input we just set up. So connect the length down here. Great. Next, we'll need to add the values of our world location and the multiplied value. So I'm gonna drag from the world location, type add, and I'm gonna drag from this value, the one that we just multiplied. Awesome. So finally, we'll connect it to the end here in the line trace by channel, and that's awesome. So we just did the start and the end of our line trace. However, we're not done yet. Next, you see this out hit pin here? We'll need to do a little bit of work. So we fired a laser from the camera, but it's totally useless at the moment. Now we need to find out what's that thing that is hitting. It needs to send us information so we can use it in the code. So drag out of the out hit node here and type break hit result. Okay, another thing before I forget, you can either click on the function here or select it here, and in the outputs we'll need to add another variable. I'm gonna call it hit actor. So as you can see, when we click the output here, we got a return node with the variable. The hit actor variable type needs to be of type actor. So let's look it up. So here we have object types actor, and there's gonna be an object reference. Awesome, let's bring it all the way to the end. Let's click this small arrow here. Okay, and as you can see here, guys, we have an entire list we can use now. Awesome, right? Well, what to do next? We can drag out from the hit actor here and plug it to the hit actor output that we just set up. And finally, connect the line trace by channel with the return node. So compile and save. Okay, so let's recap. Laser is firing away. Oh my god, it hit something. It did. then give me the information which actor was hit by our awesome laser. Good, we got our line trace, but how do we use it now? Now let's compile and save once again, just in case. I'm gonna close the line trace function here. And let's go back to the main event graph. Here we'll go to the input indirect we just created and drag out of pressed. Now what should we type here? Here we're gonna type line trace. So this is the function that we just created. We're gonna call the line trace function. So basically, if you remember in the input settings, we set up the left mouse button. So this means when you press the left mouse button, it'll start the line trace function. Awesome. So here in the length variable, we'll type a number. I'll go like 500. You can type any number you like. So basically this is the length of the line trace, the length of the laser. And then let's drag out of the hit actor here. And the first thing we will need to do is to check whether the hit actor that the laser hit is valid. So I'm gonna type is valid. I'm gonna choose this one, not this one. Here's the difference. So here we have the function that checks whether the hit actor is valid, but it's a Boolean return value. If you use the other is valid, it basically has like input and output nodes here that we'll need to put. This way it's easier. So I'm gonna delete this one and we're gonna use is valid with the return value of Boolean type. Awesome. So the first thing we'll need to do is check whether the hit actor is valid. Okay, now once again, drag out of the hit actor for a second time, and now the laser hit some actor, but we need to know whether that particular actor has the BPI blueprint interface we just set up. So here we're gonna type does implement interface. Okay, and here in interface, we're gonna choose the blueprint interface that we created in the beginning of this video. Now here we have two Boolean return values and we need them both. So what we can do is drag out of them and type and Boolean. And we're gonna connect this one too. Okay, finally we'll need a branch to plug the AND Boolean. So branch is basically an if-else statement. If something's true, do the following code. If it's not true, do another code or maybe do nothing. So I'm gonna drag out of here and type branch. Another way you can do branch is just hold B on the keyboard and click. So as you can see here, we have true and false execution pins. And that means like if the line trace hit actor is valid and it implements interface 2, so we have AND here, on true execution pin we're gonna do some code. If it's not true, we won't do anything. Okay, so what we did is basically we hit an actor, we check whether that hit actor is valid and implements our interface, and this is true. We're gonna drag out of the true node here and type interaction. So this is the function that we have inside the BPI interact. Awesome. And finally here, we're gonna drag out of the hit actor and connect it to the interaction here. I'm just gonna double click here to add a reroute node, just to make the code a little bit cleaner, and finally connect the line trace with the branch. Good. So let's compile and save. And let's close the blueprint. Now let's go back to the content folder and inside the blueprints folder that we created. And for the sake of organization, I'll create another folder here and I'm gonna call it blueprint actors. Great, let's enter inside. All right, so once again, let's right click here, choose blueprints and choose blueprint class. So here our blueprint class needs to be actor. I'm gonna choose actor and I'm gonna name it. You can name it any way you like, but I'm gonna call it BP box. Okay, so the blueprint actor can be anything you want. It can be a door in your game world, a drawer, anything interactable and so on. Okay, so now let's open it up. And now here we'll need to add something that the laser can hit. So we'll add a component. Click add component here, just add in Unreal, and type static mesh. So here it is. Let's click on the static mesh. Let's name it, we can name it crate, it doesn't matter. Okay, so here I'm gonna choose the cube that comes with Unreal. I think it's too big, yeah. So I'm gonna press R, you can reduce the size. Although I would advise you guys, like when you're doing blueprints, make sure to have them always on 1:1 scale and don't try to resize them here because it might cause some issues further on in development. So now we have a cube here. The next thing we'll need to do is implement the blueprint interface. So let's go to class settings here, and here in implemented interfaces, click add, and we're gonna type BPI interact. Okay, so we've just added our blueprint interact interface. So practically it's done. However, the last thing we need to do so we can see it in action is go to the event graph here. I'm gonna just delete those. They're not needed for the sake of this tutorial. And we're gonna type here event interaction. So this is event interaction from the BPI interact. And I'm gonna drag out of the execution pin here. And for this tutorial, I'll just do a print string. So drag out, type print string, and type here in the string, we hit the box. Okay, compile and save. Okay, let's close this one down. Let's dive into the game. So as you can see, the line trace basically works. Like when I press left click, you can see the laser coming out of the camera. That is great. And one thing we'll need to do now is we'll need to drag the blueprint actor into the world. So I'm gonna add the box here. And again, let's go back into the game. So if I left click on this box, we should get some blue letters on the left side of the screen. Basically, that's the print string, the debugging. So left click, we hit the box. Left click, we hit the box. We hit the box, we hit the box. So there we go. So next time you create a blueprint actor, whether it's a door, a drawer, a valve, an oven, a fridge, a weapon that needs picking up, an item, or for mining, anything you can imagine, just add the blueprint interface through class settings, add the event interaction in its graph, and now you can do any code you like it to do once interacted by the player. So my fellow indie game developers, embrace the power of blueprint interfaces and let your creativity soar. That's it for today's video. If you loved this video, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more game dev content like this. See ya!